Hello folks, welcome back to the channel once again. Thank you very much for joining me. You are always most welcome. So today something slightly different, not completely different, just slightly different. We have got a model review of a kit from Modelsvit in the Ukraine. We're probably more familiar with ICM here on my channel, but Modelsvit we have seen once before when we did a Russian aircraft. I forget which one it was now. Today we've got the Mirage III-E. So this is the export version of the Mirage 3. So there's two versions. There's the EAI, which is the Argentinian Export edition, and the EBR, the Brazilian version of the export edition. And it's going to be quite interesting, I think. So first of all, we've got some, I've got to say, Modelsvit seem to go for this incredibly tiny printing on the side. So first of all, I'll tell you it's their kit number 72 scale, of course, 72063. You've got some really cracking artwork. As you can see, this is actually the Argentinian one taking off. And of course, this is quite an interesting one for me because I should also mention, by the way, this was lent to us by David, a friend, good friend of the channel. And of course, these are the ones that we used along with the daggers. These are the Mirage 3s that we used against the British naval forces in the Falklands, in the Falklands conflict in April and May and June, I suppose. April, May and June 1982. Now, Modelsvit, I have to say, I've got this thing about in tiniest print you've ever seen, so I'm probably not even going to be able to read it even with my new glasses, because they have gone for some teensy printing. I'm sure now you can see that with our big 20 times Canon zoom. So basically we've got an Argentinian version with the blue, based at Buenos Aires. Then we've got the Rio Galapagos Air Base, and this is definitely the second one. This is definitely one of the Falklands attack planes. Then we have got the Brazilian version here, based at Anápolis Air Base. Then over here we've got another Argentina, and this is at the Tandai Air Base in Buenos Aires. Then we have the Brazilian version. You can tell it's got the Brazilian flag on the tail, the colours of the Brazilian flag, which is a bit of a cross between the French style, silver metal finish, which is nice. Quite like that. And then again you've got the Brazilian one at the end, where it's the Anápolis Air Base again, and with a sort of more subtle Brazilian flag logo, as you can see. Well, it's a good job I did. I don't want to keep banging on about my my new glasses, but it's a good job I did change them, because you definitely need something to read that. It's tiny. Anyway, on the other side, we've got something I don't really like. I've got to be honest. I've said it before. I'll say it again. We've got like a 3D screen rendering, which I think are absolutely appalling. I don't think there's any place for these at all. We don't need to see the 3D rendering. What we want to see is the kit. Yeah. A finished kit, that's the one time when a bit of the kit actually built would actually be having some value, I think. Anyway, there we are. That's the way that if you do it like this, you get people like Revell do it, and quite a few of the Chinese manufacturers like Great Wall Hobby do it as well. Not a trend I support, but anyway, there we go. Let's have a look what we got in the box. So not too big. In fact, it's actually quite a small bag in the box. Can you see what I mean? There's a fair bit of box there with not a huge amount of kit in it. I'm not sure why they selected quite such a big box. We've got some anti-moisture desiccant gel there. I say I've got to be a little bit careful because it's not my property, and we've got to be handling it with some care. And the instructions do not want to come out at all, it seems. Well, I think that the problem is that the instructions are slightly bigger than the actual box dimensions. So, here we go then. Let's see what we've got. Bit of history, which is always good. Very much sort of similar to the ICM style. It says, in 1964, the Mirage III-E fighter entered service with the French Air Force. Few modifications not capable of nuclear weapons usage were prepared for export. Okay, so that was the EA for Argentina and the EBR for the Brazilian Air Force. In 1967, Argentina ordered 19 of these fighters, and the first airplanes were delivered in 1972 to the Mariano Moreno Squadron. At the beginning of the Falklands War in 1982, only 13 EA fighters remained still in service, so quite an early version for them, relatively speaking. So 482, April, these fighters received the Magic 1 new air-to-air missiles. First combat flights began in May 82, however, till the end of the conflict. It never entered into real fights with enemy aircraft. I'm not so sure about that. I don't know where they've got that from. That's not my understanding at all. A number of these were shot down, 2 or 3 I think, at least. But anyway, I don't want to get into any controversy there, I'm just saying. And the Brazilian Air Force received initially 12 Mirage EBRs in 72 also. Another 16 were under the Brazilian designation F103E. That's a bit confusing name, isn't it? It sounds like a starfighter or something. Anyway, both Argentinian and Brazilian fighter jets have retained in service for many decades, having many upgrades. Okay? Right, let's have a look at what we've got then. The decals are in the bag, so we'll zoom you in so you can see this instruction book, which seems quite nicely printed. And you've got a really nice, clear, crystal clear sprue tree map. We've got some photo etch, and this is good. Already looking good, isn't it? We've got some decals, clear parts, and then we've got the assembly stages. So let's have a look. Fairly reasonably detailed looking seat, and looks like we've got some, I think the photo etch is some of the harnesses, seat belts for the seat. Then we've got the main cockpit being built up here around it, and your seat going in. Nice bit of colour there as well. I thought that's quite nice that they've shown colours, give you a bit of a hint. And you got your instrumentation, again more photo etch and decals combination I think it is. Going in here, and your side instruments, your pedals for the rudders, and of course the stick, various radio gear and panel switches, etc. And then it shows you clearly the position of all these, which is quite nicely done. Then you're going to, we can add 4 grams, is that all? Okay. Yeah, it's only small, isn't it? 4 grams of weight in the nose, and a bit closer. And then you're going to put your cockpit assembly inside the nose section, and you're going to start building up your engines, complete with your kind of afterburner ring, flame ring, and they've done it in three parts. I'm not sure I like that, but anyway. And then you've got your tailpipe, building up your nose wheel here with the tyre, and then building up your main gear bays here. And then we're on to the next page, and we are working on the afterburner. Oh, it looks like it's, is it photo etch? Yes it is. Okay, that's going to be a little bit tricky. There's not a lot of English in these instructions, it has to be said. But anyway, so you're building up your sort of afterburner nozzle at the back, exhaust nozzle. Then you've got the cockpit going in here in a very slot-in unitary manner. I hope that fits well. And obviously you've got your they show that in the wrong way, don't they? This is another one of these confusing ones, isn't it? I can't think who it was we looked at a couple of weeks ago. So they've got what looks like a small, this is at the top of the page, and yet that comes after this. Yes, they've numbered them correctly, but that's a little bit confusing. It's your eye is drawn to this first because it's at the top. Very odd. So you do that first and then you go and do that. It's kind of a strange way of doing it, but anyway. Down here we've got the ventral strake. I think it's got a tank in it, hasn't it, actually, as well. And then you've got your main lower wing is gone on. You're then going to bring your upper wings down and your tailplane down, and then you've got your flaps and your ailerons going on the back of the wings. I mean, it looks very detailed for a 72nd scale, doesn't it? This reminds me, in terms of the visuals, it looks like the 48th scale Edward that I built, with some difficulty, it has to be said. I didn't have a good time with that at all. I suspect this will be better. Anyway, then you're building up your main gear. Then you got your Magic missiles, air-to-air missiles coming in, and your Matra R530s, and then your external fuel tanks also going in there. building in your main front gear and the bay with the actuator arms for the doors. And one thing I will say, that these are very busy, and it's not like Airfix, is it, where they have a lot of stages that are very simple with just a couple of parts going in to keep it nice and easy to follow. There's quite a lot of busy activity in one frame, as though they're doing a bit of an AMK, you know, let's see how many we can cram into one image. Not sure I like that too much. It's not too bad. It's not too bad in fairness. Not as bad as AMK, but yeah, I think they could do with calming it down a bit, maybe having a few more stages and a bit less actions going on in each stage. Anyway, then you get the canopy coming in, you've got an open or shut option, and then finally for the Brazilian version it looks like we have canards. Interesting, I didn't know that. So we've got canards on the Brazilian version and not on the Argentine version. Yeah, I wonder why that was. It's almost looking like the Kafir, isn't it? And then you've got your paint colour callouts. So we've got this Casa Air Force of Argentina, 8th Air Group, 1st Squadron, Mariano Moreno, very attractive pale blue like the Argentine flag. And then we have got the, interestingly, like a silver, I presume it's silver, is that? I think it is. Yeah, metallic silver and a bit of light grey here and there. So that's a more of a traditional Mirage colour, and that one's based at Buenos Aires Tandil Air Base. And then we've got the Falklands option, which has got the very traditional camo with the dark tan and dark green and green. I remember Sharky Ward talked about when he was in combat with these and saying that colour scheme was actually very effective over the Falklands because yeah, it was the similar colours to the terrain. Perhaps the dark green's a little dark, but it did give them some low-vis element, you know. And then the silver underneath, of course. And this one, of course, is the Rio Galapagos Air Base Falklands War. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure what they said at the beginning about them not getting shot down is not correct. That's they were losses, trust me. Anyway, doesn't matter. So then we're going on to the Brazilian options, and this one you've got the 3 options, and only the last one's got the canards. So first one is the traditional Mirage silver again, but with this Brazilian marking on the tail. So quite a familiar look to it. Almost looks French, doesn't it, or even Israeli. Apart from that Brazilian designation. Then you've got this quite a nice azure grey, which is a really nice colour, with aluminium underneath, and again you've got this more subtle Brazilian marking on the tail, and these very Brazilian, strangely, I don't know if you've noticed, they have this very strange, like a star as their sort of rondels or roundels. They have this strange star, don't they, with the Brazilian colours, but they're very low vis. I don't think you'd see those in the air at all. I found that really odd. Anyway, not a reason why for me. And then we've got the last version, and this is the one which has got the canards. If you can make them out there they are. And this is the Annapolis 1985. So it's a later, a slight modification, I guess, an update of the aircraft later in 85 to keep it relevant. You can see the canards here, of course. They're very small though, aren't they? I'm not sure how much difference they made really, but it's quite a nice scheme. Yeah, there's some nice different schemes there, so yeah, not bad at all. So far so good. Looks fairly logical and everything, just I say a little bit busy in places, those instructions, but not too bad, not too bad. So, why don't we just get into the plastic? It shouldn't take too long, because it's only a 76 scale. See what we have here. And let's have a look. Now, I say I've only seen one Modelsvit before. Let's look at the day cards first, shall we? See what we have. At least I won't be grumbling as much as I was with Revell on my recent rant. That's for sure. Pretty sure Modelsvit are a little bit more sophisticated than quite a lot of the Revell stuff. And here we go. So yeah, you've got the sort of a lot of the traditional Mark III Mirage markings, things like the air brakes. There you can see those rather odd Brazilian markings I just spoke about here. It's like almost like a roundel and a star combined, but quite hard to see that, I think, really, or identify it in the air. Then you've got some interesting attack dog here, or like an eagle here. And you've got some quite interesting markings. I think that's the Argentine version. Yeah, quite nice, to be honest, quite nice. The Argentinian, they've got a very almost British stroke American low-vis marking there for their flag, instead of having it in the traditional blue and white. And then over here you've got your typical Mirage III red go faster stripes, stroke arrows and pinstriping, which is actually quite attractive, let's be honest. Yes, it's actually very nice, and you've got some very fine decals here. You've got some instrumentation there. Quite a nice decal sheet, to be honest. So on top of that, we have got in the bag we've got some other treats, and they include a mask set, very important. You see, this is what I was talking about in my Revell rant. It wasn't just aimed only at Revell, a little bit towards Airfix as well, but a bit of photo etch, bit of masks for the cockpit, but especially the masks, I think. But they've also got here some rather, very tiny, but rather nifty looking photo etch, which is in quite a dark coppery sort of colour. And you can see the flame ring here for the engine, and then all the instrumentation, and also seatbelt parts. Yeah, very nice, and a little card there for the Modelsvit. So that was good. And then we have got, starting with the sprues now, because there's actually some in the bag here. So we're going to have a look at these. So we've got the optional canards. Is that telling me there's an optional tail? Or is that the tail? No, that is the tail. So here are the little canards that are the option for the Brazilian version, for the mid-80s update I mentioned. That's quite nice, isn't it? That's quite finely moulded. It's got like a ridge on the inside, which is quite nicely done. So that's cool. Then we've got the tail plane, vertical stabiliser I should say. Yeah, and that's actually, we've got some lovely panel line detail there, riveting. See that? That is very cool. Yes, we like that. There you go. That's excellent. So that's that. And then we have, also in the bag, we've got our clear parts. So let's have a look at those. And this is basically just the canopy. Open or closed options on the canopy. And yeah, it's a fairly simple canopy, but there's some nice detail in terms of the riveting on the frame. If you can make that out. Get it closer. See that rivet? Rivets are nice. And then you've got it here in the closed version. Yeah, I mean there's quite a bit of distortion, I'll be honest. It's okay on the open version, but on the closed one, I don't know if I'd catch this in the camera for you. Can you make that out? There, it's quite distorted around here. Yeah, it is actually. It's not. The far one is better. The open version. It's a lot nicer looking, actually. Interesting. But yeah, I mean, when it's 72nd scale, I think that based on what I see here, I definitely have it. Therefore on the ground and with the canopy open, just for that reason, to be honest. And then there is a couple of little light covers, that's all. Tiny little parts we won't worry about. Pretty decent though, pretty decent. No complaints there at all, really. So I'm going to put those back, if you bear with me, because we don't want these to get let out. I like the way they come in a resealable bag as well. That's quite a zip bag. That's quite nice, because it means that we can have a proper look at it all without worrying about upsetting any owners. Okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty then. So here we've got the main fuselage parts, sprue A, and you can see here all the panel lines are really nice. Yeah. The air intake baffles here. You've got part of the gear bay interior there. Some good detail here on the instrumentation and the interior of the cockpit. That's nice. And again the other side, just tiny traces of flash on the edges, but nothing to be concerned about at all. Very nice. Good, good scale recess rivets, nice access panels and hatches and things like that. All looks pretty special actually, pretty nice. Then, next one. This is the wings. I can't believe how small it all is. It's not a big plane, is it really? It's 72nd scale. But again, we've got some really nice detail here. So we've got our flaps. We've got some lovely riveting detail here. Look at this. Isn't that nice? I say flaps, but it's not the ailerons. Ailerons and flaps, isn't it? Actually, it's the back of the wing. Nicely shaped as well. It's got that sort of flip in the tip of the. Just turn it around. You can probably see it better at that angle. There we go. Where my thumb is. The flip on the downward flip on the tip of the wings. In fact, on this, no, actually I'm wrong. On this model, this later model, it's an upward flip on the tip. So that's the, as you're looking at it, that's the starboard wing with an upward flip at the end, and that's the port wing with a flick up at the end. Interesting. Probably just using it as almost like a vortex generator or flow modifier. But there's your main wing top. Lovely panel lining. You see the air brake there. Impression there might be a little bit of oil still on the surface of this mould. I think you might want to consider giving it a good wash in some warm water and detergent before you start, and then rinse it, of course, before you start building it. Because I do think, just get the feeling there's a little bit of residue from the mould maybe left on it. Okay, and then you've got your inner. Look at the detail on these bay doors. Well, that's better than the old Edward 48 that I built. That's beautifully done. I'm getting that a little bit closer for you. Look at that. So very nice. And all your gear and your wheels, main wheels here, and then you've got your nose wheel tyres there. Nice sprue. Then we've got all our weapons. The duck tanks are there, and we've got our magic missiles, air-to-air missiles here. And again, some nice detail on these tanks. Look there we go. Some nice finessed detail there. Good riveting and panel lines. There's two versions of this it's a very low capacity tank, or there's a big one there, two different versions. And then over here we've got the underside of the next sprue, we've got the underside of the wing, and some really nice detail going on here. Very close attention to detail with all these panel lines and rivets. And then of course you've got your gun muzzle exits here underneath. The cannon, 20mm cannons I think, weren't they? 20 or 30, I always get mixed up, I think it's 20. And you've got your pylons, which are very crisp. Nice detail. This is for 72nd, this is really nice. You've got those Matra missiles there. I think that's an air-to-surface missile, so they'll be using these against the British ships in the Falklands. I'm trying to. If the Sea Harriers don't get them first, which I'm sure they did in most cases, or at least made them retire, shall we say. And then finally we have, last but not least, we've got this sprue with all the engine, the nose section of the front of the fuselage, which looks very, very nice, I've got to say. I do like Modelsvit. It's something very, it's almost like clear prop, isn't it? Another one that's we've looked at recently. Very nice kits these are. Very sharp, crisp. Got some nice detail here. Look at the exhaust there. As I mentioned, there's some, I think there's some bits of PE that enhance it a little as well. Your flame ring here, and yeah, the internals of the engine blades there. So, what do we think then? Well, I have to say this is the second Modelsvit I've seen, and it's very similar in quality to the first one, which was excellent. And I just didn't check actually. I can't remember what I gave that one. I think I gave it 9 to 9.5 out of 10. And I've got to be honest, I think it's the same again, really, because there's really nothing not to like. I mean, I've perhaps been a bit picky on the instructions because they did seem a little bit crowded at times, but other than that, I mean, the plastic is fantastic detail for 72nd scale there. That's like, you know, when people talk about 72nd scale being the new 48th. These are the sort of kits they're talking about, really, I think. Quite a nice little presentation there. Got, you know, 6 schemes. You've got some good schemes to choose from. I can imagine this being a very popular seller in South America for obvious reasons. Nice artwork, you know, it comes with all these options. The only thing that's weird for me is that, look at that. That actual sprues that are in there literally take up about a third of the box. I'll put it in the other way, but yeah, it's a bit strange because they slop around a lot, don't they, in transit. Not the best way of packing them, I have to say. Anyway, minor criticism. I'm going to give it 9.5 out of 10 because it's got everything really. I mean, I'm being very picky finding anything to criticise at all. It's just a lovely little kit and it's got such fine detail. Everything you need is there. You've got the masks, you've got the photo etch, you don't need any aftermarket for that at all, really. 9.5 out of 10. Hope you'll give me a 10 out of 10 with a thumbs up, a like. Always helps the channel. And I hope you found that interesting. We've got lots of other interesting models coming along to be reviewed. I say it, our friend of the channel, David, has lent me several I was interested in. And some real treats. And that's the first one I've done, in fact. And I have to say, very enjoyable it was too, for such a little kit. Sort of kit you can build in a weekend, maybe. Nice, you know, if it goes together as well as it looks, and I think it probably will. You're laughing. So there we go, that's the Mirage III EA, Argentinian version, and the EBR, Brazilian version. Thank you for joining us. Please tune in soon. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed already, to do so, and ding that notification bell. And we will be along in the not too distant future with some more fascinating reviews and other things to talk about, including manufacturer reviews, which some of them, as you know, have been a bit controversial, especially the Revell one. But thank you for tuning in. Please look after yourselves, and until the next one, take care of yourselves. Thanks a lot, and bye for now.